And again, my name is Horace Hodge, and I will be moderating this session. I'm proudly served with USDA, Office of Partnership and Public Engagement at Prairie View A&M University. Welcome to our second breakout session entitled Community Program. So our first speaker, if we're ready to go, will be with Rural Development, Michael Canales. He is the Community Programs Director, and he's going to visit with us about water and environmental programs and community facilities. So, Michael, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Horace. Can you hear me clearly?
I hear you fine.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, sir, again, for that introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Canales, and as Mr. Hodge mentioned, I am the Community Programs Director for USDA Rural Development in Texas. I have been with USDA for just over 30 years, and I've been the program director since about 2007. My staff and I oversee the water and wastewater program type programs and the essential community facility programs for the state. As you already have heard in the various presentations, rural development has 25 offices around the state. Those offices are the first point of contacts for these types of programs and are instrumental in working with potential applicants along with our technical assistance providers, which would be Texas Rural Water Association and Communities Unlimited, in getting the application process started for various entities. Now, community programs is divided into two areas. There is the water environmental programs and the community facilities. Each of these programs has their own regulations, program guidelines, eligibility requirements, and program limitations. Today, I should be providing you with some basic information regarding these programs, and hopefully you'll be able to see how the different programs can support the long-term sustainability of a rural community. You can go to the slides, please, sir. So as I mentioned before, there are a couple of different guiding regulations or federal regulations that govern community programs. Water environmental programs, and I'll call it WEP throughout my presentation here, falls under the rules and regulations of the Rural Utilities Service. Through the Rural Utilities Service, WEP programs provide rural communities and assist them with obtaining the technical assistance and financing necessary to develop drinking water and wastewater disposal systems. As you all are aware, water and sanitary sewer and waste disposal systems are vital not only to public health, but also to the economic vitality of a rural community. Next slide, please. So the basic objective of the water environmental programs, again, as I mentioned beforehand, is to provide affordable financial assistance to rural areas and towns to develop water supply, sewage, stormwater, and solid waste disposal systems. In the upcoming slides, I will also provide you some details on eligible areas, who eligible applicants are, the different project types that can be funded, and some grant eligibility that can be supplemented in each of those programs. All right, so let me start off with the three most utilized funding opportunities under the water environmental programs. First, as you see there on the slide, is the Water and Waste Disposable Direct Loan and Grant Program. This program provides funding for clean and reliable drinking water, sanitary sewer, and waste disposal systems to households and businesses in rural areas. This program assists qualified applicants who are not able to obtain commercial credit at reasonable rates and terms. Loan terms for this program are up to a 40-year payback with very low interest rates based on the need of the project and the eligibility of the area being served. Currently, the water environmental programs interest rates are at their all-time historic lows. Rates are broken down into three levels, being the market, intermediate, and poverty. And the poverty level right now is just over 1%. So it ranges from 1.125% to about 2% as far as the interest rates on the 40-year payback on the loan terms. The second program outlined there is the Water and Waste Disposal Guaranteed Loans. The Guaranteed Loan Program helps private lenders in providing affordable financing to qualified borrowers to improve access to reliable water and wastewater systems. The federal government guarantees loans on the lenders at about a 90% guarantee of the full loan amount. Interest rates under these programs are negotiated between the lender and the borrower with a payback of also about 40 years. Interest rates, again, as I mentioned, are negotiated between the two parties, but given the market conditions now, those interest rates on the guaranteed loan are also very, very competitive. That third program that I'm just gonna briefly talk about is the Water and Waste Facility Loan and Grant Program to alleviate health risk, which we call our 306C program. This program provides funding to low-income communities that face significant health risks, lack access to safe, reliable drinking water and waste disposal services. The typical name for these types of areas is a colonia, and those colonias are defined as subdivisions located outside incorporated areas within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border that were recognized as being in existence prior to October 1st, 1989. Partnerships with other agencies and stakeholders are strongly encouraged under this program. And then as it's indicated there, it is primarily a grant program where up to 100% of the financing, depending on the financial ability or the payback of the entity applying, it could all be up to 100% grant. And again, these are designated colonias within 150 miles of the Texas-Mexico border. Next slide, please. All right, who can apply for WEP funding? We've got three primary potential applicants. First one there is public bodies of governmental entities, which would be cities, towns, MUDs, special utility districts, entities like that. Nonprofit organizations, which are primarily water supply corporations, and then the Native American tribes. We've got three recognized, federally recognized Native American tribes in Texas, and each of those tribes is also a potential eligible applicant for funding. Next slide, please. All right, so what areas can be served? Under Water Environmental Program funding, or WEP, the areas to be served must be rural in nature. Cities and towns or incorporated areas with 10,000 in population or less. Funding could also be provided to facilities that primarily serve a rural area but are located potentially in a non-rural area. And I say 10,000 is the limit for water environmental programs. I mentioned the guaranteed program a moment or two ago. The guaranteed program has recently changed its population limit. Under the guaranteed program now, funding can be provided to entities that serve areas of 50,000 in population or less. So under the guarantee, it goes up to 50 for water environmental, but under the direct program for water environmental, it's still capped at 10,000. All right, so what type of funding, or what can the funding be provided for? What type of structures or facilities? There's 4 different types there. We've got water, wastewater, solid waste, and stormwater drainage. Water projects include the construction and development of wells, water supply structures, distribution systems, storage facilities, testing and monitoring equipment, or buildings. Wastewater projects can include treatment plants, collection lines, and discharge facilities. Solid waste projects can include landfills, incinerators, cell liners, transfer stations, and recycling equipment. And then examples of stormwater drainage projects could include line improvements, pumping stations, storage and treatment facilities for stormwater drainage. And in some cases, under each one of those 4, funds or fees could also be used for legal engineering, some land acquisition, startup operation and maintenance, and then potentially some interest during construction, depending on the type of project and the level of funding. As far as the loan and grant program go, we typically review funding or files and applications as a loan-only project first. In some cases, that's not possible. The project cannot be fully supported by a loan. The debt service couldn't be handled based on the rates the customers are being charged. And so the option to throw in some grant money is there. There's a couple of factors that do decide or can decide what a grant component of a project can be. First is the median household income of the service area. The median household income of the service area to qualify for any grant must be less than 80% of the state non-metropolitan median household income. If that is the case and There are health and sanitary issues. Potentially, there could be a poverty rate of interest being charged on a project, and then up to a 75% grant included with it. In cases where the median household income is above 80%, then that limits the project to a maximum of 45% grant. And I say maximum just because an applicant or an entity meets the grant threshold. One of the main factors is, again, is the financial viability of the project in deciding what level of grant is being offered. If the service area median household income is above the state non-metropolitan median household income, the project is not grant eligible, and it would be either funded with 100% loan and potentially up to a guaranteed loan offer being made also. Next slide, please. Again, with grant eligibility, there are three factors, and one, again, as I talked to, was the median household income. There are two other ones there, as you see on the slides, that determine what percentage of grant an applicant can qualify for. The main one there is comparable system costs. As it stated there, grant assistance may not be used to lower the cost of the service below that is being provided by similar systems. So in looking at that, what we do is the current rate structure is reviewed and compared to that of similar systems.
We got about 1 minute there.
All right, sir. The number of customers, the type of source, and the rates that are being charged are looked at and focused in, and we'll look at what has happened on the financial side and see what level of grant also is available. And of course, the last one there is the availability of funds. If we have funds for grants and the applicant is eligible, and then we'll do that. Next slide, sir. All right, there's a couple of other smaller programs. We've got our pre-development planning grants and our search grants. Those fund projects from the beginning, soft costs primarily associated with engineering, planning, and development. We also have our ECWAC, which is our emergency program. That can go from $150,000 to $1 million to address either water supply issues or distribution issues associated with an emergency situation. Next slide, please. As you can see, this next slide, just a couple of slides next on our water side, some of the projects that we've developed there. And next slide is our wastewater lagoon system, manholes associated with the sewer system there. And that primarily is just a nutshell of our water environmental programs that we could offer. Next slide. All right, so given the time frame, I'm just briefly going to talk about our community facilities programs. Those programs are designed or developed for the funding and development of a community from the ground up, as you alluded to earlier, then infrastructure in rural communities to promote economic development, improve public health, public safety, and the overall quality of life of a community. You can skip to the next couple of slides, please. As I mentioned, there are a couple of guiding documents. Community facilities falls under rural housing service and those guidelines, which are slightly different than the rural utilities. We still offer direct loans, grants, and loan guarantees. The payouts on the direct loans are similar to the water, up to a 40-year at fairly competitive interest rates. Grants can be made for a project in increments of 15, 35, 55, or 75% of an eligible project based on the median household income and the population of the being served by the project. And again, their loan guarantees are lender loans, and those rates and terms are negotiated. Similar to the water, we've got public bodies, nonprofit organizations, and federally recognized Indian tribes as far as being eligible applicants. Next slide. The only other difference between this and the water environmental programs is that we are allowed to go into cities and towns of up to 20 in population. Water, we got 10. Community facilities, we've got 20 as far as the population goes. Next slide, sir. Again, for essential community facilities, this is a community-based project or program. So we must serve the local rural community, and it must have primarily significant community support in dealing mostly with nonprofit organizations. Next slide. When we do review an application there, we do take a couple of factors into consideration: what the reasonable rates and terms are for commercial credit, whether or not the entity can apply for commercial credit and get it, and whether or not the applicant and the project qualifies for any grant. Next slide. And so just in the interest of time, the next two slides, actually the next slide just basically shows some of the projects that we've done. Public health, public safety, public service or education projects that will allow for the orderly development of a community, are potential projects that we could actually fund either through a loan, a grant, a combination of the two, or a guarantee. All right, Horace, I believe that because of the time, then I will defer to the next speaker, sir.
Thank you so much. Again, it resonated with me on yesterday. I was on a Zoom meeting and I heard your deputy administrator mention the fact that rural development could build a town from the ground up, whether it be on flatland or hillside. So thank you so much for that information. Again, if there are questions relative to this presentation, please put them in the chat box and they will be captured. Moving right along, our next presenter is from the Natural Resources Conservation Service to talk about some community programs that they're offering. And our presenter is Ms. Bertha Venegas. She is the State Outreach Coordinator, and she will be talking to us on urban and rural conservation grant.
Yes, good morning, Horace. Can you hear me okay?
I think I can.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. As Horace mentioned, I am Bertha Venegas. I'm the State Outreach Specialist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I have been with the agency for 32 years, serving in different positions, and currently serving as a State Outreach Coordinator. I had some slides. Could you go to the first slide? As Mr. Clint Evans mentioned, the Natural Resource Conservation Service is a federal agency under USDA that works hand in hand with the people of Texas to improve and protect their soil and water and other natural resources. So we have been tasked to deliver conservation solutions through voluntary conservation. The program that I'm going to talk about with you this morning is the Texas Urban and Rural Conservation Projects. This was developed to address food deserts and educate rural and urban citizens and youth on the benefits of growing locally grown fresh produce and the greening of the urban landscapes through demonstration projects. The grant opportunity has been offered for 3 years now. The first year was only for urban projects, and we were able to fund 26 of those projects. The second year, we added the rural conservation projects, and with that, we were able to fund 22 urban projects and 9 rural projects. And then this fiscal year that we are in, we added Project Green, which is growing roots for education, environment, and nutrition. And we have 32 projects that we are currently working on getting agreements set up for those projects to get started, hopefully by September or the beginning of October. So the urban and rural conservation projects, this is a list of those that are eligible for this opportunity. And these are not eligible for individuals. These are only for city or township governments, county governments, for-profit organizations other than small businesses, Native Americans, Native American tribal organizations, nonprofits having a 501c3, and nonprofits that do not have a 501c3 other than institutions of higher education. The actual definitions of all these different eligibility entity types can be found in grants.gov. These opportunities are posted through a notice of funding announcement, and they all go through grants.gov. They are not a yearly type grant that you apply for. It's only when the funds are available. And when that happens, then we post that to grants.gov, and there's an open period for entities to apply. The next slide is Project Green. So Project Green was developed for both public and private and institutions of higher education. So the schools and the institutions of higher education compete separately from the Texas Urban and Rural Conservation Projects. So we normally have two funding pools available, and one is for the Texas Urban and Rural Projects and those entities eligible under that. And the other funding pool would be for Project Green, which is only for schools and institutions of higher education. The schools could be schools, school districts, private schools, academies that were considered schools, and the higher institutions could be junior colleges, community colleges, universities. The funding that we have available or have had available in the past is funding specifically for vegetable gardens up to $4,000, rainwater harvesting systems up to $5,000, pollinator habitat up to $3,000, and high tunnels up to $6,500. A school or organization can apply for a combination of these, one of these or all of these in one project. And they can also apply for different projects if they are located in different, or if they are in different locations. So if a school district has 3 schools that want to do projects, they could apply for each of those schools to compete for those funds that are available. These funding opportunities are for both Texas Urban and Rural, and they're also available for Project Green. As I mentioned earlier, the availability of funds is depending on the federal budget. So maybe sometime after October 1 or sometime thereafter, we will have a better idea if there will be any funding for this program. It is a competitive process, and all the applications are received through grants.gov once a notice of funding announcement is made. And if you want to look at those projects that we have funded in the past, you can find it on our website that I listed here. It'll have all the entities that have been funded in the past, and it'll have some information on the projects that they're working on or have worked on. I just have, if you are interested in keeping up with NRCS and the different announcements like this one and other announcements for farmers and ranchers and individuals that have farms and ranches, you can sign up on that red envelope at the bottom right corner of the screen. You can enter your email and hit go, and it'll take you through a couple of screens, and it'll sign you up. And once information is sent out for the various programs that we offer, you will get an email. So that way you can keep abreast of any deadlines that may come up and any funding opportunities that might become available. This funding opportunity for the Texas Urban and Rural Projects and Project Green, they usually post for 60 days, and once it closes, you cannot apply until it opens again. So it's a good idea to sign up to receive our newsletters or our emails so that you can keep abreast with the different deadlines that happen. Next slide. There's a couple of projects that I'm just highlighting. As I mentioned earlier, we have quite a few projects that were funded throughout the last 3 years. The Central Texas Food Bank had one of those grants. They wanted to expand the production of their garden, and at the same time they were supporting monarch butterfly populations. This helped them to increase their food production for hunger relief, and they are located in an urban food desert. Not only did it increase the habitat for monarchs, it also expanded opportunities for low-income populations so that they can access the urban green space. And this one is located in Austin. The next project was that I highlighted is Galveston's own farmers market, and they wanted to enhance the Young Gardeners program through the expansion of the existing gardens that they have. This helped them with their hands-on nutrition programs that was based on the use of the gardens to increase the number of fruits and vegetables that the children eat on a daily basis. And it helped them with making healthy snack choices. So this one is located in Galveston and is with a Galveston-owned farmers market. And the last project that I'm highlighting is a Laredo Community College. This was a hands-on environmental science experiences for students. It was teaching students how to grow food, and it was also teaching them the skills that they need to grow food to feed themselves and others. And this one included a high tunnel with a garden and a pollinator habitat. As I mentioned, we have a lot of projects, and you can read about them on our website so that you can prepare if you can use these type of projects in your community. You can see what projects we have funded in the past. Of course, you can also reach out to me. That is my email and my phone number, and I'll be glad to answer any questions on any of these projects.
Well, thank you, Bertha. A plethora of information, some innovative outreach opportunities for NRCS, and to bring some additional partners, non-traditional partners, into the NRCS family of producers and innovators, et cetera, et cetera. I think the one thing, the big takeaway from what I got in your presentation was the fact that you would go to the Texas NRCS website and put in your email so that you could stay abreast of the programs and the announcements and the funding opportunities that NRCS has to offer. So I would impose upon all of the participants to take advantage of that, and that will keep you in tune with what's going on in the conservation world, and more specifically, the conservation projects and opportunities in Texas. So thank you very much, Bertha. All right, that brings us to our third and final presenter in our breakout session number 2, community programs. And I want to say that this gentleman actually reached out. I guess he'd heard about the Texas Virtual Summit, called me up and said he was available to assist in any way he could. Of course, we took advantage of that and put him on program. He will be representing the U.S. Department of Commerce, and will be talking to us more specifically about university center programs and build to scale program. I'm anxious to hear what that's about. So at this time, I'm only going to pronounce the first 3 letters in his name, Apu. It's your turn.
Hi, thanks, Horace, and I appreciate the invitation to share with you some of the things going on at the Economic Development Administration underneath the U.S. Department of Commerce. Next slide, please. Specifically, I'd like to tell you about some of the activities that we are supporting in the efforts of recovery for the CARES Act and the coronavirus pandemic. Next slide, please. And also, I'll quickly go over today sort of the regional office that we support, the economic development districts within this region, an overview of the funding that's available to our communities in support of the CARES Act, the eligibility for these funds, the investment priorities that need to be adhered to access these funds, and then quickly tell you a little bit about economic development integration, my role, and how it fits in with our federal partners, with our communities, and so on. Next slide, please. So the EDA is split up into 6 different regions. This region falls under the Austin Regional Office. And for each region, and within our region here in the state of Texas, in our surrounding area, we have a number of we have 4 different economic development representatives, or EDRs. And they are the ones who will assist communities, assist local towns, the state, sometimes a regional economic development entity, in actually doing the technical assistance of putting together a proposal for a grant in support of these funds. And there's a link there to how you can get and find out who your EDR is for your area to support with those funds. And then, or you can also contact me. I'll talk a little bit about how I fit into this whole thing as well. Next slide, please. And so, you know, as I mentioned before, our Austin regional office covers New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. And within the region and within the entire United States, we have economic development districts that cover the entire country. And these are going to be also primary resources to assist grantees in putting together a package. There must be a letter of support from the local economic development district. And really between them and the EDRs at the EDA, they're going to give you all of the support and help that you need in putting together a proposal for the funds. Next slide, please. So specifically talking about the funds available under the CARES Act passed last April, we were appropriated, the EDA was appropriated about $1.5 billion in additional economic adjustment assistance program funds to assist communities affected by the coronavirus pandemic. So this was a huge allocation in terms of, I think the entire EDA typically has a budget of around 200 million annually. So as you can imagine, a 1.5 billion was a substantial amount to cover over the next 2 years in coronavirus pandemic assistance. And as you can see, you know, within the regional offices, the Austin regional office was allocated about $236 million in support of these. I can tell you today is the first, our Austin regional office is convening to consider the first round of proposals that have been submitted, and it's about 30 proposals totaling about $70 million for the first round of these CARES Act funds. So it's been you know, quite a big new effort, and so in getting that out and helping with the assistance during the pandemic, we're definitely increasing workload, increasing staff in order to fit the needs of the communities. Next slide, please. So we have made the majority of these CARES Act funds available through an addendum to the fiscal year 2020 Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance, NOFO. You can find that at the link provided there, or you can, at the end of this, I'll have my contact information. I can assist you with getting there as well. Typically with our programs, and I know we listed just the university centers and build to scale program, but the EDA offers many programs, and I can definitely work with you to figure out, you know, depending on your community and the needs, which program would fit the best. But typically, you know, we fund it at the rate of about a 50-50 federal to grantee cost share. With these funds, in support of the coronavirus pandemic, it's more of an 80-20 cost share, so significantly more in that regard. And you can also search for that NOFO with PWEAA 2020 at grants.gov to find out more information about that as well. And specifically for the CARES Act Recovery Assistance is located at pages 46 to 50 of that NOFO. Next slide, please. So in terms of eligibility for these CARES Act funds, applicants must, and this is very important, applicants must explain clearly how the proposed project will prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus, or show the economic injury that the community has suffered as a result of the coronavirus. It's very important, and as I mentioned before, the EDRs can work with you firsthand in identifying that in a proposal and working together with the community. And some examples of eligible applicants: Native American tribes, state governments, city or townships, nonprofits having 501c3 status, private institutions of education, county governments, nonprofits without the 501c3 status, and special district governments. Next slide, please. Some of the investment priorities for these funds: it must meet the EDA's recovery and resilience investment priorities, and the applications must explain how the project will meet EDA's investment priorities relating to critical infrastructure, workforce development and manufacturing, exports, and opportunity zones. Some examples under the CARES Act that EDA will fund: planning and strategy projects, that obviously caused directly by the pandemic, technical assistance for private sector entities, infrastructure projects, and new construction and facility improvements. And we can, definitely talk more about that and kind of what fits under that as we identify what, the sorts of things that the community is looking for now. Specifically, as I mentioned before, my name is Apu Naik, and I'm the Economic Development Integrator for the Austin Regional Office. The way that I work is with our federal partners and creating collaborations and partners. So if your community has a project that you're interested in, we want to work together to collaborate between federal partners and also working with our economic development representatives in the local community and the economic development districts to put together a project that meets our investment priorities and our needs in order to respond to the pandemic. So here's my contact information, and be happy to meet with you more and get into more detail on this. But yeah, as Horace mentioned, I have been working directly with some of our USDA partners. Some of you might have seen some of these slides before, and some of the money that we've been talking a lot with our USDA partners. And so this was an opportunity that I thought I'd like to come and share with you. And so as you might, if you see areas and identify areas within your community which we could assist with, that's hopefully we can work together towards that. So thanks again. I appreciate the time and to share what we have available at the EDA. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Apu, and appreciate you coming, reaching out to me personally, and your continued collaboration and working with the USDA agencies and partners. I really do appreciate that. And I think one thing I saw in there was the fact that your agency, you said, I think normally receives about 200 million on annually for a budget, and what I saw in that is quadruple that. So it's exciting times for reaching out to help these various communities. So thank you so much for that presentation. Again, to the participants, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And if you looking to maybe share the presentation of this summit in its entirety, it is being recorded, and the links will be posted for each of the sessions through the Southern Rural Development Center.